Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to a special presentation of an SWBL podcast where we are doing our captain interviews, not on paper, not on the website, but instead on video podcast. I am pleased to be joined today for our second captain interview with Mr. Scott Pohle of the SWBL Yankees. Scott, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Sam. It's good to be here.
You know, Scott, we are obviously, most of this podcast is going to obviously be about your team, the Yankees, but let's just get the monkey off our back right away, Scott. You've lost a player, and this has been a career Yankee since 2000, not 2012 of the first year of the franchise era, but I'm talking 2011 when you, Sam Bakula, and John Callaway were together and won the championship the last year of the non-franchise era. John Callaway won Rookie of the Year for you guys, had a fantastic showing. Possibly his best year he's ever had was in 2011. And he actually went to the Astros, moved to the Astros. And it was all positive. It was nothing negative about anything. You know, he was
100%.
You getting more. You had 5 players, and we'll kind of talk about Jackson and his offensive prowess last year. But were you going to bat 5? Like, he was going to lose playing time. So who knows? So John went what was going to give him more playing time, and he went to the Astros for this next year. But talk about, you know, the sentimental value of John, you know, and how it stunk to see him leave, but also, you know, it's good to see him flourish and thrive and get more at bats too. So kind of talk about that as a manager.
Yeah. I mean, first, I love John. I thought he just epitomized who the Yankees were over the years. And it was definitely after, I think, the 2011 season when it was me, Sam, and John. And then the franchise era happened.
Yeah.
It was really, he was on the Indians, but me and Sam the whole time were like, nah, we're going to get John next year.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so love John, have nothing but respect for him, and just appreciated the whole process of him kind of letting us know, you know, him and Jackson were free agents this year. So he had the great thing is he had the ability to choose like where he wanted to go. And we started talking, and I told him flat out, my goal for this year was really, hey, let's just bat 5, have fun, and all of us can hit. It's always been, side note, I know we're talking about John, but it's always been one of my like worst decisions early on. I don't know why I never batted Jackson, but I was like, let's just bat 5 and have fun. And you know, when he kind of hesitated, I knew like, like I wonder what he's thinking. And so I just encouraged him to be open and honest through the whole process. And I said, hey, would love to have you, but at the end of the day, we're friends, and I want you to play like where you want to play and think that you'd be the most happy. So he thought about it, and just in that process too, we started talking about, I mean, I don't want to break any hot takes here, but started talking about the next year, you know, and what that could, and we've talked about it as the front office, or some members of the front office, of just longevity, and just encourage them, hey, there's a group of friends that's your age that never really had the chance or opportunity to have their own franchise.
Sure.
And they deserve it if they want it. And so he really took with that and ran it, and it's just a good spirit. So yes, did it sting that he moved on? 100%. I always loved having a lefty bat. I think that's one of the coolest things in the league. But at the end of the day, I wanted what's best for him. So I'm happy for him, and you know, look forward to see what he does next year.
You know, and that leads us to our next point. You know, last year without John, because of COVID-19, you know, he wasn't able to make it back. You got to see 2 of your players really step up and shine on your roster. And your brother, Kevin, had, in my opinion, his best year he's ever had. Not only was he named to National Wiffle 3rd team fielders for his first nomination for a national team, he also was the Gold Glove winner, or Gold Hands winner, excuse me, in right field. And he had some amazing plays that last year and definitely deserved that award. And it's his first major award, along with being an all-star, his first all-star selection. And he won his second, I know this is separate from on the field, but off the field, he won his second logo of the year, National Wiffle logo of the year, by making the Marlins. So a huge year for Kevin. And then also huge year for Jackson at the plate, hitting more home runs than he's ever hit in his entire career. And correct me if I'm wrong, he had more home runs than you, correct? Didn't
Oh
you have
yeah.
one less? Like,
Yep.
and he, but while his prowess at the plate was fantastic, on the
Hmm.
mound, he took a step back. And
Yeah.
in his career, and we've looked these stats up, but in his career, he has never had less than 2 wins in a season, and he has never had less than 10 strikeouts. And last
Mm.
year, he only had 1 win and 7 strikeouts. So on the mound, he took a step back, but offensively, he took a step up. So kind of talk
Yeah.
about, those two players. You and Sam Bakula have always been, the cornerstone of the Yankees franchise. But talk about
Hmm.
Kevin and Jackson and kind of their role heading into 2021.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start with Kevin. That was a pleasant surprise
Yeah.
for sure. I
Especially
mean,
losing John, who was a great fielder for you guys for years.
yeah, and usually what it would be is I'd be in right field and John would be in left field, and being able to make that switch, I always felt really comfortable with that. But then losing John in left field, it's like, all right, like we're just kind of all hands on deck. We're just going to hold it loose and see what sticks. And no, I mean Kevin made a lot of great plays. We were even
Yeah.
watching one the other day. It's like he's a heavy-footed, like just
Yeah, he
he's
is.
look, we're identical twins, but like his feet are so much heavier than mine. And so when he dives or makes a play like that, he thuds to the ground
Yes,
like
you can
big
hear
time. So
it.
yeah. So it's just fun to see him out there diving and being competitive. Was a pleasant surprise both on the fielding aspect, but then also at the plate. I feel like, you know, coming from college baseball, transitioning into wiffle ball, which, of course, wiffle ball much more competitive and better than
Oh,
I'm just
obviously,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah. I mean, no, but he kind of re-entered, and I think since he had left, the unique thing about the league is it just has the talent. Everyone's gotten so much better than when he had left, and so I think there was just kind of a learning curve, and every year he's just gotten a little bit better, which is great,
Yeah,
so, but yeah, Jackson, I mean, holy smokes, who would have saw
yeah.
that coming?
Nobody.
Um, no, I mean, that was incredible. It was a lot of fun for us to watch, and
Yeah.
if you looked at, I mean, it's kind of a weird stat, but something I've had in my back of my mind, especially when I was thinking about batting 5 this year, was when we've made our 2 playoff runs, Jackson was batting.
Hmm.
So that's kind of an interesting. He's been in pressure situations, the big games, and has
Sure.
won those big games. So I love seeing him step up to the plate. The Yankees, whether we back it up or not, I've always loved kind of saying the Bash Bros.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, John's kind of leaving, but Jackson has kind of surged his way into that. So the hitting's great, but the pitching, yeah, that like stunk a little bit.
Yeah.
We both, me and Jackson on both sides, we just couldn't find our groove for whatever it was. Maybe it was just the weirdness of the year and COVID and
Yeah.
playing way later. And I mean, we had one day, I think we played 4 or 5 games in a row. Like, it was just, oh, well,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
you talk about, last year and how last year was just such an interesting year for everybody all around, and the Expos
Yeah.
winning the championship and them never making a playoff appearance and then winning and going on that huge run that they did starting on Sunday.
Hmm.
And you guys and the Astros and the Expos were kind of fighting for that last playoff spot, but the Expos
Yeah.
did their job. They won every single game, no matter who they played on Sunday and Monday. And they did
Yeah.
their job and got the berth. And it was this crazy stat that has always been going on with the Yankees is since 2012, every other year, the Yankees have finished 500 or above 500. But last year, the pattern still stuck. You guys went 7 and
Yeah.
3 2 years ago, and then last year, for the first time ever for the Yankees, you guys were under 500 at 4 and 6. Was John's bat lost, fielding lost, or what happened last year? Or was it just the whole difference in the year? Just each game is different because your hitting was still great, and Kevin found fielding prowess out there instead of John. So it's you can't really say it was because John was gone, but
Right.
what are you looking into this year, and what after last year? After last year's 4 and 6 finish, like what's going to happen?
Yeah. That's a crazy stat.
It is.
It's always for us. We'll get to it, but Saturday is always the day that for some reason we kind of have hangover of opening ceremonies, and then Sunday we usually win 4 games to like
Mhm.
get back to in contention to be in the playoffs. Last year, I don't know. I mean, Sam Backla didn't have his best year.
No.
It was actually probably maybe his worst year of his career.
Yeah.
And when you're in a competitive league and, you know, a guy that we heavily rely on, especially in that 2 spot, Sam, just having a hard year, and then our pitching not really clicking. You can have great fielding. You can have 3 out of 4 people hitting, but if you have that one person that's kind of struggling to find it and pitching that's not working, that's not going to work in our league. So, unfortunately, you know, we had. I mean, I even looked back at some of the games before this podcast here, and there was just games like the second game of the season, or second game for the season as we play in the Rockies, and I hit a ball that was going to be a home run for a walk-off home run, and Brian Kenny just extendo arms
Yeah.
and like gets it. You know, it's just like, hey, you know what? It didn't go our
Yeah.
way, and it was a bummer. I mean, we were in some battles, really close games,
Yep.
so the ball just didn't bounce our way.
You know, and last year was the most competitive year, you got to believe. And this year is going to be another competitive year. And we're going to get to the division breakdown in just a second. But, you know,
Yep.
let's go back to your roster. You guys are actually the only team heading into season 19. We just had the SWBL draft, and, you know, we got to see all the teams that drafted some new rookies. But you guys are the only team that have 4 players on their roster. There is no depth. It is you 4, ride or die. And there is
Ride or die.
yeah, and there's no other team that has just 4 players. Even, you know, the Rockies consistently batting 4 most years without Brett now. You know, they still have some depth too with the drafting of Chad Young as well. So all of these, you know, with all those factors, we've been doing this top 19 players in season 19, heading into season 19. Only 2 teams in our league have 100% of their players in the top 19 players, and you guys are one of them. So 4 out of
Mhm.
4 players are in this top 19 countdown that we've been doing. The other team actually being the Twins with 5 players, all 5 of theirs being on it as well. You know, what does that say about your team and, you know, going into this year where all 4 of you are seen as this is going to be your bounce back year. This is going to, you know, you have 4 of the top 20 players, let's say, in the entire league, and that's your entire roster. Do you think depth's going to be an issue, or you think you all will step up and this year's going to be continuing that trend and you're going to have a positive record and you're going to be in the playoffs?
Well, certainly, I would love the trend to continue and not to go the other way. So, um, yeah, I mean, always loved our team. You know, even when we've had 5, I've always felt like, man, we 2 things. I've loved the consistency over the years. There's never really been a worry about
Sure.
who's not going to be or who's going to be. I love
Yeah.
that we've been a franchise the whole time in
Hmm.
fullness. It's made my job easy, or um, but I don't know if we'll miss depth. You know, unless like I mean we're getting older and one of us just gets hurt. You know, Kevin dives and thuds to the ground
Oh
and can't get up. You
no.
know, like knock on wood that doesn't
Yeah.
happen. But then maybe you see us get creative if he can't go on, you know, trying to trade for something for a player. And but who knows, in the
Yeah.
competitive heat of that tournament, people probably won't give it to us.
Well, it's interesting because you talked about batting 5 possibly this year if John was still going to be there.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of teams that are talking about batting 5 for some
Yeah,
games or all games. Like
yeah.
it's turning a new leaf in this league that we're trying to get more people involved. And so many people are
Hmm.
getting good that you kind
Yeah,
of want to give them those at bats and get those feel for it. I mean, there's a lot of
yeah.
teams that are considering batting 5, but for you guys, it's 4. Like I said, it's ride or die with that squad and that roster without John now. So, you know, we're
Yeah.
really looking forward to this Yankees roster. And this leads me to our little segment I've been doing with these captains. I've been doing this with all
Uh-huh.
the captains, and it kind of puts you on the spot a little bit. But for you, it
Ooh.
magnifies it because you only have 4 players. So,
All
and
right.
I'm going to do you one even worse, Scott. I'm going to
All right.
say you can't say yourself during this.
Good.
So you
Good.
have 3 people, okay?
All
3
right.
people that
Yep.
you got to pick from, and there are
Come
3
on.
choices. So you got to have it.
Do they have to be different? Every
Oh,
player
you're going to
different,
find
or
out. You're going to find out. And
oh,
then you
okay.
can do whatever you want. But
All right.
here
All right.
is I want you to start somebody, bench somebody, and trade somebody on your roster. It can be different. It can be same, whatever you want. I'll give you an example. We just had the Royals one with Gus, and he actually
Yeah.
started me and
Uh-huh.
traded me before playoffs because apparently my pitching sucks in playoffs and I can't win a game. So, you
What
know,
a cop out answer, Gus.
he said he was going to trade me for Brett so that Brett could pitch in the playoffs for him. So,
So he only said you then?
and then, but for the benching, he said our father. So yes, I guess he did cop out by saying all skibbies. But for you, I'm not going to
Yeah,
let you
yeah.
cop out. It's 3 players, 3 things. What if you had to split them all up? Go for it.
All right. If I had to start somebody, I'm starting Jackson. If I had to bench somebody, I'm gonna you know what? I'm gonna base it solely off last year. I'm gonna bench Kevin. I'm gonna cut Sam.
Yeah, and trading Sam, you might get a big return from him.
I would
Like
never trade Sam. I can't even cut him. That sucks, but he'll
you
get
can't
to.
cut
I'll
him. You
laugh
got to
at it.
trade him. So if you
Oh,
traded him,
trade him. Sorry,
yeah,
I'll trade him. Oh,
not
whatever.
cut, trade.
I'll stick with it. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll stick with it.
I think that's what I would
Whatever.
have picked for your team as well. You wouldn't want to trade your brother, and obviously Jackson starting on the mound for you guys, you just need him. And then,
Maybe I should trade Kevin because the Yankees graphically, we don't get as much love as everybody else
oh,
because
there
Kevin's
you
out there
go.
playing. So
There you
maybe to
go.
help our brand, we trade Kevin so we get some cool pictures.
There you go. That's a good suggestion for sure. All right, thanks for letting me put you on the spot for that one. And we want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
thank our newest sponsor to the SWBL sponsorship family. We want to thank actually your former teammate was a contact for this, but Logex. Logex is an amazing company that has joined our sponsorship family, and we can't thank John Calloway enough for starting. So John Calloway, big year for him as well. But Logex simplifies logistics when you need freight moved with reliability, and you can visit them at logexinc.com. That's logexinc.com. They are going to be our media sponsor for this year for the SWBL. So every pre and post game interview is going to be with Logex. So thank you so much, Logex, for being a part of it and our roster breakdown for today. Kevin, your brother's calling me right now.
Oh,
So I don't know if he wanted to get in on this or not. Or maybe his ears were burning because he
maybe he heard
heard.
that I was going to trade him.
Maybe he can hear you from the next room. Yeah. So I just had to ignore Kevin's phone call, just so you know. But let's move on. If he calls back again, I might answer. We'll do an impromptu
Okay,
interview here.
sure.
But let's break down the divisions. You guys are in a division that is, I hate to say it, but quite winnable for you guys, especially coming back from another year. I think you and the Brewers both are really excited about your division that you came because when the Cardinal Blinds and Shutters division started off with Royals Twins, who are two of the teams that historically on paper are going to be really two tough wins for people, and they're in the same division. So they got to play each other twice and nobody else does.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Glendale, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram division, who is definitely going to be the most fun division to watch with the Expos,
Mm-hmm.
Rockies, and Astros. Nobody knows who's going to win that division.
No,
With
we might have to break up another game like we did last year.
yeah, defending champions. You have the Rockies, who have never missed a playoff, and you have the Astros, who have the best roster they've ever had. So,
Mm-hmm.
but let's talk about your Ketting Eye Center division. And the Ketting Eye Center division with you guys, the Brewers, and the Marlins. Now, the Marlins are 0-10, but there's some cool storylines in this as well. The Brewers and
Mm-hmm.
Marlins have some connections with Eli being the brother-in-law of Peter. And then also, you guys have some connections with Sam Bakula and Luke Bakula. And also, the Marlins just drafted your cousin, Corey
Mm-hmm.
Pohle, on their
Yep.
roster as well. So this has a lot of family connections in this Ketting Eye Center division. Break down your division for us and talk about, are you going to have 2 teams, 1 team, you think? Will it be you guys? Kind of like talk about that real quick. Because some people are saying if the Glendale, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram division, if they have a fantastic interleague play, all 3 of them can make it. But if they all
Mm-hmm.
beat up on each other, only one of them might make it. So,
Yeah.
what do you think
Yeah.
about the Brewers, Yankees, and Marlins as a division for the Ketting Eye Center?
I think the Marlins don't get enough credit. I know they went 0-10,
Sure.
but they're competitive. They're not like the 0-10s of
The Giants
yesteryear or
and
whatever.
Pirates. Yeah.
Yeah, that just were like sad sacks of potatoes just out there, just like moping around after they lost a few games.
Hey,
Like
the Expos were there at one point, and now look at
they
them.
were,
So,
they were. I specifically have been known to hate on the Expos over the years for their slowly dying like morale and motivation to
yep.
play. So, um, That being said, I don't think this is going to be. I think the Marlins will will win some games. I hope they don't win them against us, and that's just going to make us go down the toilet. Um, the Brewers, with so many family connections in this division, I think
Yeah.
it adds a level of interesting storylines, like you said, but also, maybe brothers get a little heated or cousins and they know the right buttons to push and they push
Smack
them.
talking.
Yep. And it makes things go haywire. But if I had to make a prediction, I'm not gonna stand up here and bet against anybody else but us. So I like our chances, but the Brewers have always been hard.
Yeah.
We're usually battling the Brewers in the
Wild card.
in the wild card.
Yeah.
We usually play them on Sundays in big games,
Hmm.
so they're a tough team.
Yeah.
Um, so
That division is going to be all these divisions are going to be exciting to watch because I don't think anybody can truly pick
yeah,
100% who's going to win these divisions. It's kind of like March Madness. Like
yep,
you could make your predictions, but I guarantee you one of the divisions that you pick is going to be wrong. Like whoever you're going to pick in that division, because to get all three correct would be a huge undertaking to guess because there's so many
yeah.
people that can win these divisions. But let's talk about the schedule real quick. The schedule came out, and like you just said, there are some really important games on people's schedule. As a
Mhm.
captain, you can kind of pinpoint a game that you could circle and say, okay, this game we need to get a win. Like we need to get this win. It's going to catapult our season into it. You could look at last year and look at the Expos, and when they turned their winning streak around on Sunday, that catapulted them into the winning streak that they needed to win the whole thing. So, what do you think is the most important game on your schedule going into season 19?
So I'm not going to answer that directly,
All
and
right.
you can tell me I have to. But if you look at our franchise, and we talked about it, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, Saturdays have been our nemesis. Like, if you look at the years where we've done bad, it's because we lose 3 games on Saturday, or we lose 2 games on Saturday and we
Sure.
lost our opener. So I would just say Saturday. Like, we have to win games on Saturday. So whoever we're playing, which I looked at the schedule and I was like, "Oof, man, Saturday. We got to
Okay.
win games. We got to steal some games on Saturday."
That's fine. You don't have to answer it indirectly. You can answer however you want. But Saturday has very much consistently been, a downfall of the Yankees throughout their history. Even when you guys have great time, like you went 9-1, your one loss was on Saturday. So,
Yeah.
you can pinpoint that as being kind of your big. And that year was just a crazy year when you guys went 9-1 and the Royals went 10-0. Your only loss
Yep.
was against the 10-0 Royals. So that year was something to behold. I don't know if we'll ever have a 10-0 and 9-1 team ever again
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
history of the league. So, but as history would dictate, who knows? Next year, there's going to be some winning record for the Yankees, and it's just going to be an interesting thing to find out what's going to be. So,
Hopefully. Woo.
yeah, that's true. But let's move on to our next segment, Scott. And our next segment is actually a rapid fire round. So what's going to happen is I'm going to ask you 10 questions rapid fire. You could give me a short, quick answer. If you want to explain it, maybe you can shorten the explanation and talk about it, but leave it for the viewers to be creative with why you come up that answer as well with some of these too. We're going to start with an easy one, but this rapid fire round is brought to you by Andy's Frozen Custard. What better way to cool down a rapid fire round than with some custard from Andy's Frozen Custard, a loyal sponsor of the SWBL back again. They sponsored our summer league. They sponsored our all-star game and home run derby last year. So we're so excited to have Andy's Frozen Custard back as our sponsorship in our sponsorship family. So are you ready to get started, Scott? I got 10 questions for you. Are you ready
Yeah,
to
let's do
go?
it.
Let's do it. Here we
Yep.
go. First question, a little easy one for you. Okay. I want you to give me your favorite, since this is the Andy's Frozen Custard, okay, your favorite ice cream topping.
Uh, as of late, it's been cookie dough.
Cookie dough, we talked actually last night about this gelato you keep talking about. So I thought
Woo,
this was
it's
the
good.
perfect softball question
Yeah.
to get us started. So cookie dough, going with the old staple. All right. Top of your head, which team has had the best uniform that stands out in the SWBL franchise history?
In the history, it has to go Brewers.
Brewers. All right. History is the
It's
Brewers.
getting a little boring as of late, but yeah, if
But
you go historically, yeah.
they were the first team that matched. They were
Hmm.
just the first team that matched overall. So a good answer there. Who is the best SWBL rivalry? And that could be a past rivalry or a current one.
That's actually a tough one. I really enjoy the Rocky Brewer rivalry.
It's been a popular one
So,
for sure. Yeah, Rockies Brewers is a
but
is
you know what? The year that the A's and the Athletic, or the A's and the Astros had the rivalry, or like the bottom three teams, I love that too because it gets heated.
yeah,
So,
it's gonna there's always some interesting rivalries that kind of pan out every single season. So it's always a fun question to figure out.
mhm.
But 2021 SWBL home run leader will be
Spencer Bogad.
Spencer Bogad again. All right, here we go.
Hmm.
The lowest ERA in season 19.
You.
All right. All right. Let me warm up my arm. All right. Who will be the Yankees team MVP for any reason?
We need it to be Jackson. So Jackson.
All right. Love the answer. If you could trade for any SWBL player, who would it be?
Trade, not sign.
Who would you okay, sign or trade for? Yeah. Who would you get on your team?
Gus.
Gus. All right. Draft any non-baseball professional athlete to your team.
Oh, LeBron James.
LeBron James.
LeBron James.
That's probably who I would pick too. Let's be honest. He, just an athlete that could probably play in any sport, and also he would get you the followers for sure. And he kind
Oh
of
yeah.
he kind of has that Yankee, pinstripes, mentality of
Yeah,
he's the
yeah, yeah,
best.
yeah.
So, all right, will we have
Oh,
will we have an 0-10 team in 2021?
yes.
Do you want to say who? You
No.
don't have to. No, no. Let's leave it to the viewers. All right. And your 2021 SWBL champion will be
Um,
say that again. It was a little quiet on my end.
Brewers.
Brewers. That is a very cool answer because, second place last year, coming over the hump maybe and going to it. So Brewers. And that means, they're making the playoffs. So that means you guys are going to have to either, be a
Uh-oh.
2 or 3 seed or win that wild card. So, all right.
Yep.
So thank you so much, Scott, for going through the rapid fire round brought to you by Andy's Frozen Custard. Scott, we're going to make this pretty quick. I just got one more question for you, and it's kind of a big one. So we can talk about it, however you would like. But next year is season 20. Next year is season 20. It is amazing to think that we have one of the longest running wiffle ball leagues in the entire country, in the entire world, when you include some international leagues as well. Nobody can say that there's not a lot, excuse me, that can say they are still running
Hmm.
and are 20 years into it. And next year will be that, and this league is set up in a way that could go to season 20 and beyond. And many of us want it to happen. Many of us are also, there's children popping up everywhere that, eventually this
Growing like
league
weeds.
could be this league could be handed off at one point when students start getting older. I teach my homeschool is Craig Elementary School, but I actually am also teaching at Run Hollow this year, where Jackson Light is a 5th grader. So I am Jackson Light's music teacher this year. And he's athletic. I mean, he's in 5th grade. Like, you got to believe, like, I started this league when I was in 7th, 8th grade. So he's only a couple years
Yep.
away from the age that me and Brett and all of us started this league at. So he could very well be the first signing from any team in the next couple of years. And we're going to have this wave of youth that's going to start coming in. But,
Yeah.
my overall question is, can you believe that next year is season 20? But also kind of talk about, like, what are you looking forward to for season 20 and beyond, like, for this league? Like, what's going to be the essence of this league, later on, when we're all, in our, late 30s, pushing 40s, like, season 20, it's amazing to think we've got this far. But what do you think about that? Season 20 is coming up. Like, what do you think about the future of this league?
What do I think about the future of the league? I think it's always been about friendships, and the thing that like I appreciate most about what happens, and I think what obviously you are like the spearheader of doing a lot of the heavy lifting that nobody sees to help propel the league to be what it is. But I would say a lot of us, at least my age, my generation players, we really used it as like a reunion.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
I loved being able to, when Sam was in Chicago, he would take the train and I would go drive and pick him up and we would be in our Yankees uniform driving to the field like, just being a little, whatever. And but it's so fun, like getting to the field for the first time. That's what I really missed last year,
Yeah.
was not being able to see new faces, give them hugs, like catch up. It was more like, 6 feet. But I mean, the future is whatever we want to make. I mean, that's the fun thing about wiffle ball. It's like we can make it what we want it to be and adjust to what our lives look like. When we
Sure.
were, in sixth and seventh grade, when I first, or seventh and eighth grade, when I first started, like we were playing all summer because
Yeah.
that's what our lives looked like. So I think the future is bright if we want it to be bright. Specifically for season 20, it's kind of interesting. Every decade, the league shifted pretty heavily. And I think this next decade or start of the next decade, the league will shift again.
Yeah.
And teams are going to, I mean, from anything I'm hearing, there's going to be a lot of movement going
It'll
on.
be an interesting
So,
makeup. Yeah. And,
yeah.
like you said, we can make anything we want out of this. And there's one thing, like every league, it seems like eventually dies out. Like
Mhm.
when wiffle ball leagues come to fruition, like I've been a part of the national scene as well. And it seems like leagues eventually they die out and they fizzle. And there's some
Yeah.
leagues that kind of take a back seat and they're like, okay, we're getting a little less like, creative with our approach. Like it doesn't mean as much. And then they'll ramp back up maybe, and then they'll take a few years back. But it seems like our years have stayed pretty consistent throughout our 20, or we've tried to
Yep.
evolve and continue to get better. And our
Yep.
brand of wiffle ball, playing in 4 days, like is unmatched anywhere else. Nobody does what we do. And it's kind of a quirky
Yeah.
thing. But I also think that's what helps in our longevity. And I think you in the front office, you guys are a huge part of that. You say I'm the spearhead, but I bounce so many things off you guys, and you guys probably get so annoyed that I'm texting you pretty much every single day talking about some new thing or new
No,
idea.
no.
But I appreciate you guys and all of our players because I really hope that this league continues. But, in the back of my mind, I'm like those other people around the country. I'm like, when is this going to fizzle? Like, when are people going to be not as excited to show up, for this weekend? But it hasn't happened yet. And we're already season 20 in, and you can't really change players over because the same players keep coming back. Like
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we want to keep growing and getting bigger. And like you said, the makeup of everything next year could change. We may add another team. Who knows? So it's just exciting that we are expanding and getting better and better each year. So
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
else, Scott, you want to leave the people with? You can talk Yankees, the league, anything else you want to say before we jump off here?
I'm really looking forward to, as COVID seems to be doing its thing, but as more people get vaccinated, I'm really looking forward to being able to be around our friends. And for season
Yes.
19, it's going to be a lot of fun. So,
Yeah, and I know people are bummed a little bit because we made the decision for porta potties and pool to not be a thing this year, but we're still deciding on like the fans and the families and all of that. We probably won't do the Monday barbecue because that's just a huge event and the coming
yeah.
inside and all of that too. But there's some things up our sleeves that we're kind of thinking about how we can get creative with that. But yeah, getting vaccinated is huge because that keeps you personally safe. So if all of
Yep.
us are getting vaccinated, we build up that immunity as a league, then it's only going to
Yep.
help our community as well. So,
Yep.
all right, Scott, thank you so much again for joining us. We want to thank all of our sponsors again, Logix and Cardinal Blinds, Ketting Eye Center, Glendale Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, Reuben Brown, and Andy's Frozen Custard. Thank you so much for being a part of our sponsorship family. And Scott, thank you so much for joining us. For Commissioner Sam Skibby and for captain of the SWBL Yankees. I didn't have a Yankees hat, so I wore a Red Sox hat, as close as I could get, the AL East. So thank you, Scott, for joining us. And thanks everybody for listening to the SWBL Yankees interview with Scott Pohle. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam.